Vasudeva. Hari Om. Syam no mitrasyam varunaha syam no bhavatvaryama syam na indro bruhaspatihi syam no vishnurukramah namo brahmane namaste vayo त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु avatu mam avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Pratyapastya desyanam samanvaya vidhayakam Shantam Saumya Gunopetam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to all our brothers and sisters. So, once again we are here to continue the study of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Before commencing the class, I want to just pass on an information to you that some of our friends from Ukraine and Russia asked me to give some direction, a sort of class regarding the treatment for corona virus problem, a disease, with homeopathy. So I thought it better that on the next Saturday, that means on the 12th of this month, on this Saturday, we can have that special class at the same time exactly for 1 hour and a half, like today. And so this can be informed to all our people. Those who are attending this class can inform all our brothers and sisters who are not present today, so that everybody can have the benefit of this. So, in this aphorism, still in 19, so this about these two categories of people who are practicing Vairagya. So we were during the last few classes, we are studying more deeper with more examples to understand about these two categories of people, because most of the people who are trying to practice yoga by practicing vairagya, the non-attachment, most of the people who are practicing, they have, during their whole span of life, when they are practicing this, many of them, they fall under these two categories, Videha and Prakrutilayas. So for these two categories of people, Videhas and Prakritilayas, Videhas means those who have no body, who have left the body physically, who have no physical body. And Prakritilayas means those who have merged into their own nature. They are Prakritilayas. Prakriti means nature. Laya means to get dissolved or merged. The process of dissolution and merging is called Laya. So Prakritilayas. So we have been, with many examples, studying more and more deeper about these two categories of people. Why so much study is required about these two categories? Why we are giving such an importance for this study of these two categories of people is, most of the practitioners, they come under these two categories. That is the reason. The real yogis are those who have crossed this. But unless we know these two categories clearly, we cannot make an effort to get over this, to cross this. So that is why it is necessary to be very clear in understanding of these two categories of people. So previously we have studied about the 7 stages or levels of our consciousness. The last time, according to the teaching of Master Jwalkul, so this categorization, 7 layers or 7 stages, 7 layers of our consciousness, starting from the physical body. That we remember. So, these two categories of people, Videhas, those who have let their body, and the Prakritilayas, those who have merged into their own nature, these two types of people, these two categories of people, they have, so when they leave their body, the Videhas, and also the Prakritilayas, so these two categories are in that level, in that before the fourth stage. That means in the body, when they are in the physical body, they live identified, and their activities and all these things. And so physical body, their senses, activity of senses and mind, these 3 levels. Fourth is beyond mind, that is buddhi or discrimination. So this is, so before the soul level, before rising to the soul level, they are in these 3 levels of consciousness. Both these categories. For them what happens is, it is inevitable that they have bhava pratyaya. Bhava pratyaya also, this is the technical word which we have studied in the previous classes also. Bhava pratyaya. Bhava pratyaya, so bhava means birth. So bhava prachaya means a basis to take birth again, to take another birth or another incarnation. So this is these two, for these two categories of people, their what they experience, this forms the basis for them for their reincarnation. That they know that they have another birth they have to take. So bhava prachaya. So that is. So the first category, in these two categories, the first category is videhas, those who have left the physical body. So what happens during their span of life, when they are in their physical body, when they were living in the physical body, in the span of life, they always lived identified with the body and with the relationships that are based on their physical body with the other bodies, with other people. So they have lived all their life identified with their body and feeling mentally that they are supported, they are based, they have the support of the relationships which they have with in concordance with their body. That means, let us take an example of ourselves. So first our parents, father and mother, and after we have grown up, then we have a wife or a husband, then children, then people who are related, who have relationships with ourselves, we have with whom we are related. So all these relationships. So what happens is, since we live identified with our body, then we feel secure only basing on these relationships. So these relationships are not on the soul level, you see. These relationships are just when you are identified with the body or with your senses, with your mind, you live all the life feeling that these relationships are real and eternal. That is the problem. Because the real relationship is with the inner light, but that we won't remember always. The real relationship is either with yourself or with others. What is the real relationship? It is with the inner light, the I am. The real relationship is only one relationship. What is that? I am. That is why every being, irrespective of their race, religion, creed, sex, irrespective of all these things, every being, the real existence, true existence is as the I am. I am means the soul. That is the real existence. But since our consciousness is still on the lower levels of how we live identified, so therefore we feel all the relationships real, which are not on the soul level, but which are merely on the level of our physical existence and our mind and activity of the senses, basing on this only. So therefore, we feel supported by these relationships. But what happens? It is not real support. Real support is our I am, the inner self, which is common in everybody. The I am is common. So we say what you call individual soul, which is a part of the universal soul or spirit. So therefore, these videhas, even though they leave their body, still they stand there only clinging to these relationships which they were attached during their span of life. That is what it happens to these videhas. So even after leaving the body, but still they are attached to this. Because during their lifetime, they were feeling that they are supported by these relationships, which are not real, which are relative. That is why what we call people related is relatives. The term which we use is relative. See, what is it relative? Relative means which is not exactly real, but it is relative, related. So this is why these people, these videhas, when they leave the body, so after leaving the body also, they stand there only, without body. Videha, without body. As I explained you previously, after leaving the body, those who are in this category of like videhas and prakutrayas, those who have not attained the real experience of non-attachment, or non-attachment is the real state. But who have not attained this, vairagya. Vairagya means non-attachment. So those who are trying to attain this, but not yet attained this, for them, after leaving the body also, due to this attachment and getting identified, they leave the physical body because they have to leave. One cannot say that, no, I want to continue in this body, I cannot afford to leave. You cannot. Nobody can claim, or nobody can have any sort of legal implication to continue to be in this body. And also it is most unwise to think to continue in the same body forever. It is not possible. But in most of the books and teachings, what we study, what is it? It is explained that you will live forever, you will get immortality. What is the meaning then? You know, when you study the scriptures, when you study Bhagavad Gita, or when you study Bible, or when you study any sort of scriptures where you have the Gospels. Gospels means teaching of God. So in those Gospels you find that you can attain immortality. What is immortality? Mortality means to die. Immortality means to overcome death. Okay. But does it mean that you continue in the same physical body? If that is immortality, then it is awful. You know, when we are in our span of life, you know how many situations, how many changes that occur in our life, how many changes occur to our body. So many changes occur. So this is a natural process. So in that sense, you cannot expect immortality. You cannot expect that with the same body you can continue forever. You may have a long span of life, that is okay. There are some people who have, through their spiritual practice and through their special practices, who could extend their physical life in the same body. There are some rishis, for specific purpose, they could extend their span of life in the same body for some more time. But that requires, first of all, to completely get stabilized in the samadhi state, in the yogic state. Without that, it is not possible. Without attaining yogic state of consciousness, without getting stabilized in the yogic state, it is not possible to extend your physical life in the same body for some more time. And even if eventually, if it is extended, it will be like a hell for us really to continue in the same body after a certain span of life. You see, when you observe any tree, the bud turns into flower, the flower gets transformed into a fruit, fruit gets ripened, and after very ripe, then fruit gets separated from the tree to produce a seed once again. So this is the natural cycle. So we cannot expect that we can continue in the same physical body which we feel immortality. That is not the real meaning of immortality as it is explained in these spiritual sciences. Immortality means to cross the limitation of death. That is immortality. So through the practice of non-attachment, the practice of yoga with the non-attachment, it is possible that we cross the limitations of the body So that is the higher thing. But here, these Videhas are those who have left their physical body but who have not yet attained the real non-attachment, who have not practiced in their real life. So for them, after leaving because during the course of their life, they lived identified with their body, senses and mind. So therefore, after leaving the body, still they exist there only. And they get reincarnated from this level only, keeping their, carrying their associations. By the pull of their associations, they are given another body, they select another body. But at the same level, that is what is happening with the Videhas. But what happens is, nature makes some procedures to relieve these fellows, these beings, from this bondage or conditioning. That also we have discussed through some of our examples previously. So if a person has a great desire for something or a strong relationship with any other person on a physical level or emotional level, when he leaves the body, he is still attached to that only. So therefore, he is not relieved. So he will take another body from this level only. So that is what is happening with these Videhas. So we must have a clear understanding of this. Then only we can appreciate, we can really get into the understanding and the experience of what is given by Patanjali. So Prakriti Layas, also the second category, who are those who got dissolved in their own nature. So for example, there are persons who worship God. So you have, for example, 10 such persons are there who are regularly worshipping their own God. Why I am telling their own God? Because even though God is one, no plurality in God, God is one, but for those who worship, they make their own God. That means their own impression of God. It's not really God experience, but they make an impression, an image of God in their mind, which they call God. Then what happens? They start thinking that which of these path of practicing is right, is more correct. So everybody feels that the path which he is following is the right path, and the path the others are following is not right. It is not correct path. So this is why there are so many religions and all these things which have come into existence. They interpret the teaching of the scriptures also according to their own explanation, to support their own explanation that their path is the only path which is correct. You see, that is very strange. That is how from every religion, So if anybody is once again identified with any one in any religion, then what happens is then there will be question arises about your God and my God and his God, her God. So like this. Then what happens? Everybody feels that my God is the real God, the true God. And my path, the path which I am following, is the real path. And about others, that is not true, that is not real. That is how I feel. So some people worship idols, idols of God. So it may be idol of Krishna, or idol of Rama, idol of Buddha, idol of Christ. Or some people say that we are not worshipping idol. But idol is a symbol. Those who think that who are not worshipping idol are also worshipping idol in the form of a symbol. Suppose in one religion they worship a crescent moon, and they worship a book, a holy book. They say, we worship the holy book only as God, but not any idol. Okay, the book is also an idol. An idol is a symbol which we have put for our practice. It is not wrong to worship any idol, your own, according to your own liking. One may like cross, to wear cross. Another may like to wear an yantra, Om or some yantra, or sun god or moon, so whatever it may be. So these Prakriti Layas are those who get merged in their own nature, then they feel that this is the only real thing. So they are stuck up. They are stuck up in their mental structure. They are also in this category only. They are also below the fourth level only, up to the mental level. So those who worship these fellows, the Prakritlayas, when they worship God, their worship of God is only worship of their own idea and impression about God. You see, even those who worship God in the name of any religion, so many people of the same religion also, again, they have their own interpretation and their own different approach. Okay, you can have different approach because all approaches will once again lead to the same point. But when they do this, they feel that this is the best approach than what the others are doing. So a person who is worshipping God in a particular temple, and he finds his friend going to another temple, and he says, no, I worship only God in this temple only specifically. This is the real God. Similarly with the churches. So, I go to only this church. This fellow never goes to the church in the next road, next lane. Because he feels that, yes, this church, he is attached to only this church and he never wants to visit the other church. Same thing with the mosque also. They utter Quran, the same scripture. But see, with competition, you want to show that their mosque is much more greater than the another mosque of the other group. So this is all Prakriti Layas. All these are called Prakriti Layas. So some person may say, no, I don't have any idol worship. I worship the rising sun. Okay, that is also simple. You can worship rising sun, it's okay. Or you can worship rising moon. Whatever it may be, but the thing is, if you feel that this is only the real and all the other type of worship of God in any form, without form, all these things. Some people say, I worship God as absolute, no form, nothing, only absolute. Okay, you can, if you want like that. That is very clearly explained in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has put a question to the Lord that, my Lord, I understand that there are two categories of people. One are those who worship God in a form, in any some of other form, and the other category are those who worship God without any form, only formless, absolute, in all this, without attributes. So the Arjuna says, out of these two, who is more synthesized? Who is more devoted? And then the Lord says, it makes no difference whether you worship with a symbol or in a form, with an idol in a form or in a picture and a symbol, or whether you worship God as absolute without form, it makes no difference. But since you are having a physical body, you are living in the physical world, mundane world, all your transactions are on the physical level, it is very difficult for you to meditate or to worship God as having no form. You are in the form. All your transactions are in the physical form. So if you want to worship God as absolutely without form and without these attributes, without this, it is absolutely difficult. That is what the Lord says very clearly in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, you select, if you want you can select your own path of worship, it's okay. But since all this mundane world is in beautiful colors and beautiful forms, beautiful shapes and all these belong to the Lord Himself, manifestation of God Himself. So why do you take a trouble to seek for a formless and all this absolute, which you call absolute? That is what the Lord Himself says in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So these Prakriti Layas, so these are all, these Didehas and Prakriti Layas. The Prakriti Layas, they live always. They get so much identified there also. So they get identified with their vital and mental states. They live in vital and mental state. So second and third states. First fellows are mostly in the first state with the bodies. These people, Videhas, Prakrutilayas are those who live in the second and third stage. Vital are the force and then mind. So, these you identified, they get merged into their own nature. So therefore, they always see some people as friends, some people as enemies. So always he live as a slave of, his slave of his impression and slave of his ideas. So therefore they carry all these impressions. So they will ask, they want to concentrate. So some of the practitioners, they ask, shall I concentrate my mind? So, why do you want to concentrate? He says, I want to concentrate to get some powers. There are many people like that. If you ask her to practice yoga, then I say, how much time, for how many years I have to practice? Okay. If you say, practice it for at least 1 year continuously, then he say, after that practicing this for 1 year, may I get some powers? This is how some people question. What do you mean by power? Then he said that if I want to destroy my enemy, can I use this power? Where is your enemy? Then he says, yes, such and such person is my enemy. Okay, you bring that fellow and take out little blood and give for investigation. If anything like enemy is found in the blood, or if anything like friend is found in the investigation in the blood, or if you make a radiography of his whole of the body, or ultrasound of the body, do you find anything like enemy or anything like friend in his body? It's not possible. So, these Prakrutilayas are those fellows who are always in hallucinations that if I concentrate, if I meditate for some time, if I concentrate for some time, I have got some powers, I have got some experiences. All this is, they feel that real, but it is all their hallucination. So therefore for these two category of people, Videhas and Prakrutilayas, it is inevitable that they have a bhava pratyaya. So a basis for their next birth, next incarnation. They formed a basis for the next incarnation, next birth, in this birth itself. So that is why it is like a chain. A chain, a chain has many links. If you observe a chain, whether it is a chain which you wear as an ornament in your neck, on your neck, or if it is a chain which makes you rotate the bicycle, or any chain, what you call chain is number of links. That is called a chain, a continuous links. So in the same manner, from this birth, in this birth, if you lived identified with the body, or if you have merged yourself into your own nature like this, then you made a basis for your next birth. So you You made a link already, and according to this link only, you will get another body and carry these associations, which grow again. So it is a continuous process. You are always bound, you are never out of this rut. You are always in the links through your many births. So, therefore, Vairagya or non-attachment is possible that it is always misunderstood. Non-attachment or Vairagya is not properly understood. Always non-attachment is wrongly understood as discarding or leaving what you have to do, what is your responsibility, what is your lot to do. In the name of non-attachment, people want to leave their responsibilities, their duties in their life. That means they want to escape in the name of non-attachment. You see, in many times, when a husband is frustrated from his wife's behavior, then he feels that I got vairagya, so he wants to leave the house, go somewhere else. What happens? He is attracted to another group of her or another person, and he got his relationship with this lady is gone, but he got in relationship with another lady or another group, another person. So it makes no sense. Either husband or wife or children or parents. So when they get frustrated from their relationship, then they feel, I got non-attachment, I cut off my relationship, I want to get out of my attachment, and this they call non-attachment. But that is not true non-attachment. Non-attachment is something which they have to work out with their own mind, not with the relationship with other person. Where is the relationship? If you just think logically, where is the relationship? Is there anything in the body level? If I say she is my wife, it is a relationship. Can you locate the relationship anywhere in her body whom I call my wife? Where is my wife? I say, sure, she is my wife. Yes, she is my wife, it is okay. But how? From when? From when she is my wife and I am her husband? From when onwards? From the time when we accepted together that we want to live as husband and wife, which you call marriage. From then only. Before that you are not born as husband, or you are never born as wife. Is it true or not? Can you find anybody born as husband or born as wife? So you got into a relationship through a procedure called marriage, or whatever it may be. Until when? Until you, either of you, if you got frustrated with the other partner, then leave off, which you call divorce. So what happened? The relationship is gone. So do you call this as a real relationship? Is it vairagya? Breaking the relationship is not vairagya. If it is If breaking the relationship is vairagya, then there is no need of all this practice and all these things. Automatically we can, whenever we don't want, break. That is vairagya, no? That is not vairagya at all. Because what do you feel the relationship is not on the physical level, even though we feel it physical. We have lived together physically, but that doesn't mean the relationship is on the physical body. You must be very clear about this. I say he is my son, okay, born as your son. Okay. But physically, on the physical body of your son, can you prove anything? Yes, I can make a DNA test and I can prove that he is my son. Okay, DNA test you can make. You can make DNA test and you can confirm that his genes and your genes are the same. That is okay. But even then, after some years, there is some difference of opinion between you and the son. And then he says, no more, I trust my father. He leaves. Or you may say, you get out of my house. I don't allow you to live with me. So do the genes can keep them together? Genetically it may be true, but what about the relationship? So, vairagya is something not at all non-attached. What is called vairagya here, explained by Patanjali or Bhagavad Gita, is not at all on the physical plane. It is from the mind. Whether attachment or non-attachment, this is on the level of mind. So there we have to work out. So therefore, non-attachment or vairagya is not breaking or not going away. This is not vairagya at all. Where can you go away? What you call a friend, what you call enemy, what you call a relative is it not in your mind or outside? You just practically you can think of this. Is it only in your mind or is there in the body of the person whom you call a friend or whom you call an enemy or whom you call a relative? Is it there in that body of the person or is it there in your mind? Make this question. Invariably you have to accept that it is only in the mind. Then is it absolutely useless to have all the relationships, to remember all the relationships in the mind? It is not useless. It is how you make use of it. If this relationship is not there to keep the relationship, then what happens? It becomes a chaos. It is not useless. Then you will not make a differentiation between your mother, your wife, your sister and any other ladies or any other persons with your husband. So all this becomes a chaos, a mess. So this relationship is only for that purpose. But you should not get identified and based on the relationship. That is where we have to cross over this. So vairagya means non-attachment from that level. Just for example, We have to take simple examples. Further, in the further aphorisms, again and again, he gives, with more examples he gives. So I have the ring. So, it is an ornament, you say. So it is made of gold. Okay. So, what I call ring, is it true? Or the real existence, the reality, it is only gold. Gold is the reality, and it is molded into a ring for the time being. If after some time I say, I don't like anymore in this shape of this ring, so I want to make it into a bracelet to my wrist. So then what happens? This is changed. This is melted again and again molded into a bracelet. Then I call it a bracelet, no more a ring. What happened? So what is the real thing is gold. That is in relatively, gold is more real than the ring. And gold is also not absolute. We have to go on until you reach the one indweller consciousness, which is the absolutely real. Then what happens? What is the advantage by getting vairagya? You may ask a question, okay, then if we practice vairagya or non-attachment, what is the benefit? So in the same example, let us take the same example. So this is made of gold. So we consider gold is very valuable, okay, right? True? Okay. So I am wearing this ring and I feel, oh yes, I am having this ring, it is beautiful, made of gold, okay, all these things are true. But suppose I kept this somewhere and forgot, and then it disappeared. Now I could not find it anywhere. I like it very much. I decorate myself with this every day, all the day. I feel it is wonderful, but now it is not found because I kept somewhere and forgot it. Okay. After, every day after, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, every day, oh, I could not find it. It was so beautiful. It was so decorative for me. I could not find it. I have kept somewhere, or somebody might have taken it away. For many hours and hours I keep thinking on this. Is it not idiotic? Is it wise? If it is there, I am wearing, okay. But if I forgot somewhere else and it disappeared, you cannot do anything. So why should you waste all your time to keep thinking about this for many days? Even after 1 year, when you speak to me, then I say, oh my friend, I had a wonderful ring which was decorative. I don't know, it has missed. I miss the ring so much. Huh? So what is the benefit of practicing vairagya is that while I am wearing this also, I wear this, okay, very good. It is there, I have this, wear it. It is not wrong to wear this, okay. But all the time looking at this, oh, my ring, wonderful ring, so beautiful ring. And when it disappears suddenly, then I got despondent, I got very depressed. So all these things will not be there if I practice vairagya. If it disappeared, okay, finish. Now what I have to do? I should, if when I have this, then if I want, I should always remember, I must be careful. But if you are not careful, it has disappeared. Finish. It has disappeared because I could not remember where I have kept it. Okay. So, benefit of Vairagya, practicing Vairagya is that you are not in any way disturbed and you are not in any way prevented from attending your duty at the moment what you have to do. You are not prevented from living, not agitated anymore by any of the incidents. So these are all important for your progress. That is the benefit of practicing Vairagya. That is why we are asked to practice Vairagya. So sometimes, when some responsibility is given to us, if I don't want to take up the responsibility, then also it is not Vairagya. That is also there. For example, in Mahabharata, after the war is finished, then Lord Krishna then said, what is the next responsibility is that Yudhishthira should be encrowned as a king. Then what was the age of Yudhishthira? He was already 96 years old. Then Yudhishthira said, at this age, what is the use that I will be encrowned as a king? I am not attached to this, I am not interested. The Lord said, don't think it is Vairagya. I propose to encrown you because not for you, for the protection of the society, for the people. As the king, you have to protect your people. That is your responsibility. You want to avoid this responsibility and call it Vairagya? You have to accept, you have to be encrowned, you have to protect until your successor, your grandson, Parikshit, will become the emperor. Till that time, it is your responsibility to keep all this intact. So you have to accept this. That is Vairagya. So, no, I don't want to be the king. This is not Vairagya. So, either rejecting or always wishing and desiring, both are not allowed in Vairagya. If you have Vairagya, these things will not be there. You will not desire for something. When you are really in Vairagya, you have no special desire for something, but at the same time, you have no rejection. I am not attached to the taste of the food. I know food is to protect myself, so it is a need, okay, that is right. Food is a need for the body, okay. So suppose you are hungry, somebody has placed a tasty food, a food with good taste prepared, with devotion, and put before. I say, no, I am not attached to the taste of the food. You are not attached to the taste of the food, but you need not reject the food. This is placed before you because you are hungry. It is a need. You need not get attached to the taste, but doesn't mean that you have to reject the food because it is tasty. And that is not Vairagya. So we have to know the real meaning of Vairagya, non-attachment. Suppose somebody has presented me a shirt to wear because they liked me. Some of the friend has presented me a shirt, said, I have brought this shirt for you, please wear it. If I take this shirt and wear it, is it Vairagya or not? If I say, no, I am practicing Vairagya, so therefore I don't want to wear a new shirt. Can any shirt be new forever? It can be new always if you won't wear it. Keep it there closed. Then it can be new. But once you wear it, can it be any more new shirt? So if I say, I got Vairagya, therefore I don't wear new shirt, I will only continue with the old shirt. How long? If it is worn away, then also you want to wear it. In the same manner with your body also. When your body has completed its span and worn away, then also you want to keep the same body. No, I want to keep same body. Or on the other side, if I am fit and if you have some more work to do, then I say, I got frustrated, I want to leave the body. There is no meaning for me to live in this body. Is it Vairagya? Both these are not Vairagya. You see? So therefore, you should not make our own meaning for Vairagya. It is exactly what is Vairagya is non-attachment. Don't get attached. But it is given to you, you have to utilize it properly. So one who has failed from his responsibility is not a person who has practiced Vairagya. He is not a yogi. You take the great examples of that persons. In Mahabharata, you have Vedavyasa and you have Bhishma. Bhishma, the grandfather of Pandavas, a very great person, very valiant person, very righteous person. Is a very perfect person, is a devotee of God. He has all the great qualities, no doubt about it. Unparalleled person, wonderful person. He has sacrificed his life for the promise which he made for the sake of his father. And you have Vedavyasa, who is a very holy person, who is a rishi, who composed all these scriptures and all these. So then what happened is, this Bhishma, he promised to his father, or rather to his stepmother, that he will not marry in his life and he will not get children, so that his children will get competition. In competition, they may destroy the children of the grandchildren of his stepmother. So he said, and I won't claim this kingdom. I will be protecting this for your progeny, your children and their children and all. Okay. But what happened by the divine plan, that the sons of this lady who is the stepmother, father is the same, stepmother of Bhishma, these sons, these fellows, they got into indulgence and they died very early because of their indulgence and all these things. They are not virtuous. So when her sons have died, this lady, she was not sad for that because those fellows are not useful for the society. Then she invited Bhishma and said, he is also like a son to her stepson. So she said, now there is no meaning for you to just keep without marrying. You get married, you take responsibility of the whole kingdom. You are a very virtuous person. It is for the society you have to, after your father, they need such a good king, good emperor. So you take up this and you marry and you get children, all this. Then Bhishma said, no, Because I have promised to my father that I will not marry and I will not take up the kingdom. So I don't want to break my promise. But she said, you see, that is on the personal level you made the promise. But now on the social law, to protect the social law, you have to sacrifice your personal law. This is only your personal aspect. You have to sacrifice this for the protection of for the social law. But Bhishma said, no, I am sorry. Then what she did? She invited her another son, her own son before all this. Vedavyasa was her son from Parasara. So she invited him spiritually, and Vedavyasa came and she said, this is the situation. Now I ask you, with your spiritual power, you make the wives, that means my daughters-in-law, there are two ladies who were wives of her son who died. He said, with your spiritual powers, you get those two ladies to get impregnated and get children who will be the successors of this whole kingdom for protection. Vedavyasa, he is a rishi, he is not having a family and all these things, he is above all this. But she said, okay, for the social law, I will make this. So he, with his spiritual power, not with any sexual involvement, he got these ladies impregnated. They are King Pandu, father of Pandavas, and his brother Dhritarashtra. So you see, now Bhishma, even though he is so great, so virtuous, so learned, in spite of all these things, he failed from his responsibility. So when speaking of Vairagya, he has failed. Whereas Vedavyasa, he accepted the proposal of his mother. And he is not attached to all these things, but he just attended his responsibility. So that is Vairagya. This is a wonderful example from Mahabharata to know what is Vairagya. You see? Another practical example Master has given. Suppose there is a person who is a very sincere and virtuous person and who is in poverty. So he has, with great difficulty, he could protect his family, his parents, his wife and children. He has no sufficient income to take care of them, but he was very sincere, virtuous. So suppose he has applied for an employment. So he was called for an interview by the authorities who are employing him. So there is a committee to select him for this employment. Suppose you are in that committee and you know some secret informations about his grandfather somewhere, where there was some wrong things done. Now, you may say that I am always truthful, I will only speak truth. So in that committee, you said his grandfather made such wrong things, he was a sinful. So therefore, you need not select this person. Is it real vairagya or real truthfulness? Because here this person is very virtuous, very right person. You can select and he can be employed, protect his family. But what you did is, because you know some events from the family, from the grandfather's side, and you have put this information here, which prevented him from getting his help. So, can it be called vairagya, what you have done? Can it be called truthfulness, satyam? So, therefore, this is how you have to synthesize. So, where you have to apply and in which way you have to act, this is to be very careful in vairagya. So vairagya is, why vairagya? Because if you really practice vairagya, then you will get out of these links from one birth to other birth. Bhava prachaya. You see, you should not forget this term bhavat prachaya. Bhava prachaya means basis that forms for your next incarnation. So this is like a chain, there is a link. If you practice vairagya in a proper manner, then you will get out of this chain. That is the benefit, highest benefit what you get. So for that, you have to get out of this for that purpose. So, where you have to rectify to get out of this chain of links of one birth to other birth? It is there in your attitude where you have to rectify. That is what is implied in this teaching of Patanjali. You have to observe your behavior, your thinking, your behavior, your thinking and your action. There are three levels: your thought, your speech, your action. So on these three levels, you have to make a rectification. That is what all the scriptures explain. Therefore, in this process of rectification, you are not expected to create a shock to another person's. That is also there. And so, what is truth is, what is ultimate is, what we know as truth and what we know untruth. The background of this is ultimate. That we have to know. So, so there is no meaning if you just get born and spend away your lifespan without practicing vairagya and all this, then leave the body, and then due to this link once again you get another body which is inevitable. There is no use of this continuation for many births without making a progress. So if you want to make a progress and meaningful of this whole process meaningful, for that you have to practice vairagya. That is what is explained in this. So Vairagya is an instrument which we have to apply at every step of our daily life with all our intentions, with all our proposals which come out from our mind, and intentions and proposals, all this. In the implementation of all these, we have to practice Vairagya. So it is to be practiced at every step in our daily life, with all our relationships. Then only we can get out of this obligation. You know, what is ultimately is that anyway we have to take another birth. That is inevitable, which is already confirmed by Lord, by the scriptures and all this. But even then, is it by your free will or is it by obligation? It makes a difference. This is the difference. If we practice Vairagya perfectly in our daily life when we are in the body, then what happens is you will get out of this obligatory process. No more it is obligatory to you. You are given a free will. Then also you will take a body, you will get into incarnation, but with this free will. This is where a person who takes his birth once again with the obligatory process is bhava, it is called. Bhava means again rebirth. It's called bhava or punarjanma, again rebirth, reincarnation. So it should be out of the bondage, this obligatory process. You should come out. You should have free will. With the free will you take body once again. What for? To help, to continue to help other beings also to get into this state. It is a voluntary process then. It is no more a bondage, it is with free will, it is voluntary. This makes the difference. Then you will have a very wonderful experience of real experience of happiness. You see? So that is why so much of explanation is needed about this. So therefore what ultimately Patanjali says in this aphorism is we must be careful or cautious not to indulge and not to drown into this obligatory process of our reincarnation. So to get protected, to get prevented from this, what is needed is practicing Vairagya. That is the only thing. So that is why Vairagya in its true sense to be practiced for this purpose. Then only we can raise, our consciousness can be raised to the soul level. Then it is no more obligatory. That will be explained further and further with more details, more practical steps that we will see in our next class. So before closing this today's program, I once again remind you that on the next Saturday, on the 12th of this month, we will have a special class. On this Saturday, on the 12th of this month, we will have a special class exactly at the same time, like always, on it is a class with the advisors, practical advisors, how we can keep ourselves prevented from the influence of this coronavirus, and how we can also treat ourselves by following the homeopathic process, so that we may not fall into the grip of those people, corporate hospitals and this, who are making it very difficult for the people in the name of treatment, economically very difficult. That is what is happening. So, in a simple manner, how we can prevent it, how we can protect ourselves, and if at all we get into the influence of this disease, COVID disease, then how can we get out of this without a damage to our system by using homeopathy? On these aspects, we can have a special class on the coming Saturday, the 12th of this month. And one more thing, our friends from Ukraine, Russia and Belgium, Germany and all our friends from all over this, they also wanted to know about our program in the Guru Pujas in January 2021 in Guntur. Every year, since all the last many years, every year our friends are coming to India, attending the Guru Pujas at Guntur, which is a regular feature, followed by this, and we have this training classes, group seminar for 3 weeks every time, either in our ashram in Srisalem or in our prayer hall constructed in Visakhapatnam. This is going on every year. But now we are in this COVID period. Of course, this is not a permanent feature. This will go away. But now at the present we have still these problems. So this year it is not possible that our friends can come physically to India to take part in the Guru Pujas. Even our people also, this time we have decided that we will conduct the Guru Puja at Guntur in the same manner, but only virtual. So everybody can attend Guru Pujas from their own house, virtually, not physically. So all the programs will be there, except the cultural programs are that, but all the main programs will be there on the same dates, 11th, 12th and 13th January, at the same place in Guntur, but either from people from the outside India or the people even within India also, this time they can attend the Guru Pujas only virtually from their own house. You be in your house, in your places. And all the 3 days you can attend all the programs. And after these programs, for our friends from Europe, Russia and from all these countries, the program of the seminar also, we will conduct the program virtually. We will decide whether it is for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we will decide and announce the date of commencement of the seminar in the same manner like every year, but virtually only you can attend. So this, please keep it informed all the people there. There is no restriction because it is virtually, it is a seminar which will be conducted virtually. There will be no problem of accommodation and all these arrangements. So any number of people can attend, no problem. So you can keep informed all our people. We will give you a notification also. Thank you very much. Vasudeva.